What's going on, everybody? This is our second episode of our podcast, Break the Bread. Thank you for joining us. Here today we have Adam, we have Nancy, we have Christy, we have Yer, we have Cheyang. Today Adam will be leading this podcast, so thanks for joining in.
For this podcast, we are going to learn about psychology through Christianity. And I wanted to bring this topic up is that, I wanted to take a different approach of how to look into the psychological aspect of what a Christian is. And I know that a lot of us as Hmong, as Asian Americans, it's never really something to bring about to talk about as we go through mental disorder, we go through mental health disorder, and I really wanted to bring this up towards the youth, towards anyone who's listening to this. And yeah, just a disclaimer, I know it is a very sensitive topic, and you know, this is just something that we should bring up. And as leaders, this is something that we should bring up for us to understand and how to detect these things too. Because we know that a lot of families, maybe one or two has someone who is mentally disabled or someone who has a mental disorder, for example, someone who's like depressed or someone who has bipolar or someone who has schizophrenia. And so we want to come to an understanding of what mental disorder is. As a Christian, I want us to understand that, where do we draw the fine line for them to get the professional help that they need? And so it goes into our very first psychological question is, how do we understand someone who has a mental disorder? Like an emotional disorder too. It's not just mental disorder. For us to understand this question, we need to understand that mental is not just about how we think, but it's also how we feel too. So that's why I said mental/emotional disorder.
Well, I think when it comes to just like a disorder in general, I think for me personally, I think the best way is just to try to be open-minded and patient with the person. Um, because I feel like it's really hard to see what a person goes through or what kind of battle they're dealing with. Just for me, speaking from my opinion, because we're not medically trained. We don't know like how to actually like really reach someone in this position, just because like it's a very sensitive topic, and we just don't know um, if our opinion's the best choice. But I I honestly think you just have to be very patient, open-minded, and you just try to be like very understanding as possible to them, and like just see them as a person. I think a lot of times people with disorders they just don't feel normal, and so they deal with this battle of just trying to be a regular person, but they just feel like they're not.
Okay, so the question was, how can we help understand someone who has a mental or emotional disorder? I think as people who do serve at in the church setting, that's a very good advantage for us because we are surrounded by people often, and so I think just being not like I mean like just doing your research too, like just having knowledge of the different um, like recognizing signs and symptoms will help also because you don't have to like know exactly like, oh, that person has maybe like schizophrenia when you see that person, but just having not like just being knowledgeable of like what you may encounter will help you understand someone who may have that mental disorder or whatnot. Yeah, so just being knowledgeable in some sense, if that makes sense.
Makes
Yeah.
sense. That makes sense. Wow, I had all these answers in my head, and now I don't know what I'm going to say. I think Christy brought up a good point. Definitely recognize when someone is going through something. and be there for them, listen to. I think it's very easy to say all of this, but
Mm-hmm.
at the end, I think if you do see it and you do recognize it and you're trying to help, you shouldn't do it alone.
Yeah.
Like I said, we aren't, we don't specialize in this, and I think it's okay to ask for help, to help someone who has these signs and symptoms of like schizophrenia or depression. Um, yeah, I think it's okay to ask for help, and maybe not like explain every single detail to the person who you're asking help from, but like, just to see like what they other people's opinions about it, and like see how you guys can help that person together.
I agree. I don't think anyone, if you've never come across it before, I don't think you will understand how to react to people who do have mental disorders. Um, like for example, like going into like psych wards for like clinicals and stuff. You kind of have the basic example of what like a psych patient would be like. So everyone thinks like, oh, a psych patient's they're gonna be crazy. They're gonna, everything's gonna be crazy. Everyone's gonna be doing all this kind of crazy stuff. But when you walk in, a lot of them are really normal people, and then next thing you know, they kind of flip. So, and a lot of it is they don't see that they have an issue. It could be reality for them. And then another thing is just, oh yeah, I don't know where I'm going with this, but like Justin said, I think the best thing you can do is treat them like a human being. Like just because you have schizophrenia doesn't mean you are any different. Um, the chemicals in your brain or your body, they're just off balanced, and um, like we are fortunate that we don't have that, um, and we are, I guess, for lack of better words, like we're normal, and
Mm-hmm.
we don't lack chemicals in our brains, and like what Christy was saying, like with the whole church thing, like it's such um, people have. I don't Okay, mental disorders, I believe that a lot of people can mis interpret that for like being like possessed, or kodape, whatever how you say that. Like, someone that has like a demon around them, or someone has like, like something spiritual is following them. I mean, I'm pretty sure deep down inside there's something spiritual going on, maybe like to Christians and all that other stuff. Oh yeah, just about how the church thinks that it's something spiritual, and I'm sure it is. I'm sure there's a lot to do with something spiritual, but also I think the church, like, they don't know enough about mental disorders, and I think they kind of that's their escape by just saying, "Oh, just pray over it," because it's just like that's bothering you and stuff. And oh, I gave an example of in my nursing cohort, there was a girl that began to hear voices, and she was hearing a lot of voices, and they were talking to her, and she kind of kept it to herself, and she was just like failing exams and everything, and she was actually close to failing, but she reached out to me and another girl, and I think that's important for anyone going through any kind of mental disorders, for you to reach out, like what Minzo was saying, reach out to someone you can trust if you don't know what to do, and hopefully the people that you trust can help you figure out who you can reach out to. Like, we're not equipped to fully understand and help you because we don't specialize in these areas. We're not normally around people with mental disorders. We don't go to school for it. We don't always have the right questions or right answers and right replies. Sometimes silence is the best therapy for people that have mental issues, and silence allows people with mental disorders to reflect and talk about things. So it's just I would never know that unless I went to school for it. So yeah, I think in order for us to understand, you just have to treat these people like human beings. They're just like you. They're just like me. They just have a little bit of a difference, you know. And I think not being judgmental and trying to empathize with them is the best thing you can do, because you know we think we go through struggles, but they're over here like caught up in their mind, you know, and it's completely different from what we experienced. But yeah, go ahead,
Very
Adam.
true.
Yes, it is a very great point that you brought that up, Nancy. You know, like talking about schizophrenia, it's when you diagnose schizophrenia, you know, people start to hear things, and so they automatically think that that's a spiritual warfare. That like that's when they start hearing demons. That's where they start hearing spirit. But that's really the brain. Like it's a chemical imbalance of the brain, and so it's really important for us to bring this up too. That what how we see things as leaders, we need to guide them to get the help that they need. You know, like we may come to just understanding like maybe barely the surface of it, but for us to understand that they need help, we need to seek that help for them, for the people who has that, you know. And we talk about depression, you know, like people who go through a lot of depression, but it's like when people talk about depression, it's a bad day, you know, it's like
Hmm.
someone who just goes through a bad day or a bad time, but it's not really that. It's a feeling. So, yeah, like we talk about, you know, mental disorder and spiritual warfare. You know, society talks about mental disorder and how to manage that. Spiritual warfare talks about that and how to pray over that. And then we look and study a person thoroughly to understand what it means to have a disorder, you know? And so this next question is, when should we say that someone needs to seek professional help to determine that this is more of a mental disorder than it is a spiritual problem?
Mm, I think when you kind of see yourself or you're starting to put yourself in danger, like endanger yourself, is when you need to seek professional help. I don't think there's like you could probably just do it beforehand, but I personally think like if you ever get to the point where you are just feeling like life isn't worth it, or you're starting to cut yourself or do anything that's harmful, is when you need to seek help right away, or you should have been seeking help or reaching out to someone else. Um, yeah, I think there's not really like any point where you should say like I don't need help. I think as long as you feel that is it something you can't deal with yourself, that you should go on and seek help.
Yeah, jumping from that, um, I believe anytime you do recognize a sign or a symptom, then that's pretty much like a good time for you to maybe seek help. But again, it's really up to that person too. But
Hmm.
um, like Jay said, I think whenever you feel like it's getting out of where you can't control it anymore, then yeah. um, because I feel like sometimes like you can still control like okay, like let's say for like, depression or whatnot there, you know, like you're still going through like your normal routines or whatnot, but then you know maybe there are times where something triggers you to think about certain memories or certain times or a certain person or whatnot there, and so you know it maybe it's just a moment where you're feeling down, but maybe when when it's going out of control where you can't control like the amount of time or like how long you're laying in bed overthinking everything, then you know maybe that's a good time to actually seek professional help.
Yeah.
I agree. I going along with that. I think when you notice that they are someone, an individual, is going along the lines of possibly hurting themselves, talking about wanting to end their lives, or just, you know, going, I don't want to say going over the line, but like, like when you start noticing these things, and I think that's when you should definitely help them seek help. And yeah, I think that's one of the main things in order to help someone. Um, yeah.
I'm gonna be bringing up school a lot only because that's the only how do you say it? That's the only time I've ever been exposed to like any kind of
Yeah.
you know something that regards mental disabilities. But one thing I learned in school is people go to the hospital to get treated for pneumonia and treated for a broken leg because the hospital treats physical disabilities, things that you need that doctors can help you with. People go to psychiatric wards to get treated for the mind because it's also a disability. So it's the same thing. It's just hospitals treat physical things, mental hospitals treat the mind. So I think a lot of people think that it's something like that's out of the world, but it's you're still a patient, you're still treating someone. It's just a different point of your body, I guess you could say. I also think like I would love to go to therapy, and I don't think anyone who doesn't have a mental disorder shouldn't go to therapy. I would love to go to therapy to get my emotions out or to talk to someone to clear my thoughts and stuff. And so I don't think that there's a certain criteria to get any kind of professional help in the sense where you want to talk to a therapist. But like you guys were saying, there are criterias if we're talking about like psych issues, so that's when you think about like if you're cutting yourself, they consider people who are like a danger to yourself or a danger to others, or if you cannot afford to like um feed yourself, or if you can't take care of yourself or find shelter, that's also criteria for you don't have an option to seek help anymore. They actually keep you in to help you because the mental disorder cripples you that much, so in terms of like when do we think I forgot the question, but when we think it's a right time to seek help, or like tell people to seek help. I think I don't think there's ever like a right time in terms of like, oh, now you're finally cutting yourself, so you should definitely go. Like I think in general, when someone reaches out to you, or when you see that there are like, we are help as well. When we see that people are going through things and we reach out, that's already us trying to help them and trying to get them to a place where they possibly need to be. We're like already the first responders in that sense. But yeah, I don't think there's specifically a right or wrong time. I just think well, obviously there are right and wrong times, but then I'm just saying like, um obviously, like everyone was saying, when you're a danger to yourself, danger to others, when you can no longer help yourself, um that's definitely already like you already should have been seeking help. But I guess to encourage people who might be going through mental issues and they don't want to reach out, like if normal people, with quotes, want to reach out to just go to therapy, or to just speak out and have a chat with their girls, then that should just encourage you that it's okay. There's never a wrong time to reach out to someone. Uh, yeah, I think I'm just babbling.
No, like basically you're saying it's not limited to just what we see when someone is like endangering their lives. It's not limited to that.
Yeah.
Mm.
I really like what you brought up. Like you can seek help anytime, and you can encourage someone to seek help anytime. Like if if they do need therapy. And I think society kind of like looks down on receiving therapy.
Yeah,
Mhm.
And
I totally agree with that.
you know, I've had a few friends who they talk about their how much it's helped them. And I think, you know, in general we should like put some light on that and like encourage that, because it, you know, sometimes people just need to be heard and listened to, and sometimes we're not enough, you know.
Mhm.
And I think that's what therapy is there. I mean, they do a lot more. I'm not sure what they do exactly, but I
Yeah.
really like how you brought that up, that, you know, it's not just limited to when someone's like on the verge of like taking their life, you know.
And you know, to go along with the therapy thing, a lot of people also look down on like people taking medications for
Mm,
psych issues. And I just want to encourage people to like not be ignorant and understand that, you know, just because you take medications, or don't be afraid to allow yourself to take medications because people look down on you, like I said, it's a chemical thing. Okay, it's a chemical thing, and these medications help with that, you know. I mean, as much as you don't want to be, oh, I'm taking meds for like psych issues and stuff. No, it's not even about that. Like, do what you need to do, you know, take therapy, do therapy, talk to people, take your meds, and everything else will follow, I guess.
yeah, for sure. Like just to add on to you guys, I think like when I think people refuse help in a sense because it's looked down upon is because when they seek, like, say, if I told you guys I was going to therapy or I was taking pills, it makes me seem like I'm not a normal person anymore. Like, it takes me point of out of that spot where I'm like I'm crazy now because I'm getting
Yeah.
help or I'm taking pills now to feel like a normal person. I think that's why
Mhm.
it makes people afraid to seek help in that sense. So just like a random thought question I had, like, so what happens now to you guys? Like, if someone refuses help, what do we do then? Like, if you guys are trying to help me and I refuse to take help or to take pills.
You tell their
Honestly,
mom. I'm just kidding.
yeah, like Paigonya,
Kidding.
the only thing you could is the best thing you could do is encourage someone. Like, you know, you can't force someone's hand. It's
Yeah.
just like, it's kind of like the whole alcohol anonymous thing. Like, I can't tell you to stop drinking alcohol. I can't help you unless you want to help yourself. The best thing I can do is point you to the right directions. I can tell you where Alcoholics Anonymous is. I can, you know, offer to be there with you every time you feel like you want to drink, so I can, you know, what is it? Distract you from wanting to drink. But at the end of the day, when I'm not there, you're gonna do what you want to do. So it's just
Mhm.
like you have to find it in yourself to see if you want to continue getting help, you know. And it's not that it makes you bad if you don't want to seek help, but I think there comes, you know, when people say, you know, when you hit your lowest, that's when you're like,
Yeah.
oh, I do need help. So I mean, I'm not saying everyone's gonna get there, but people who don't want help, I think they're just being stubborn and maybe they're scared. But I think when they hit a certain point, they'll finally realize, like, oh, shoot, I do need help. And I don't think it's something you can force on someone. Not that you can't, but people won't learn until, you know,
Hmm.
they really have to learn, you know?
Yeah.
Can I rephrase that question?
Yeah.
Go for it.
What if like someone say, I don't want the help because nobody cares about me anymore? How would you go upon of like, we build this relationship with that person and then they come up to you and say that and be like, I don't know how to help you at this point. Like, how do you help someone who's, I don't want the help because nobody cares anymore? So why should I care for my health or why should I care for myself?
Oh gosh, you know, I think a lot of us, the first response would be like, okay, well then you could, like, I ain't gonna help you no more. But
Hmm.
like at the end of the day, I think all of us have maybe come across someone like that before. And I think the best thing you can do is just be there with them, you know, like be there alongside them. Even if they think you're just there to like, to look good, whatever, or something, you know, encourage them, be with them, constantly tell them, like, you know, look, I'm doing this because I care for you and I want you to get help, you know. And it's not even like you're trying to make yourself feel better, but I think it's ultimately at the end of the day, you authentically care for someone enough that despite them telling you all these things about, you know, you not caring and stuff, you're there for them, you know?
Mhm. I think like whenever I encounter something like this or someone's trying to turn me away or feel this way, I think like I try to take a step back and just love them from a distance. Like even though like I'll give them some space, but like I'll still care for them without them like physically seeing me or doing anything next to them. But like I'll still watch over them through social media, whatever they're doing. I'll ask their family or seek around like just to see how they're doing. But I think for me personally, I would take a step back just because sometimes like they just can't see it because you're doing so much, and it's just not there.
Hmm. I think the hardest part is um like understanding that sometimes you're not the one that's meant to help them. You know,
That is true.
you,
Yeah.
you could be doing all you want, and at the end of the day, the moment you take a step back, somebody comes and saves the day. And it's like at the end of the day, I'm thankful for that. But you know, like it takes a blow because you're like, man, I tried so hard, and you know they didn't respond to me, and all of a sudden someone comes and you know they were able to help them. So what did I do wrong? But I don't think it's that you did anything wrong. I think sometimes people are just receptive to others.
Hmm.
Maybe you've been there for so long that you know they just you know kind of like I'm mean to my sister because she's my sister. So it's kind of like maybe you've been there so long that you're kind of just like there with them, you know, so they don't see you in that light, and then someone else from a different perspective and atmosphere comes and it changes everything.
Definitely agree. Definitely.
Anyone else?
Nope.
Okay.
No, I'm good. Sorry.
But yes, you guys brought up some really good point in that. Like I said, we built this relationship with them and we helped them so much through going through thick and thin. And then at the end, it's like someone else come and like it just switched them like 180 and then they become all better. But that's also another way where we say we invest in them so much that like we think that we could help them. But God is not like, nope. You think like I have different plans for you for now, for this moment, for this time, and for us to understand that part as a leader too, that we're just their guide. We're not there to help them. Like we're their guide, but we're also there as like a friend, as this relationship that we need to have boundaries between us and them. And so, when we say that someone needs to seek professional help, it comes down to us saying that, we don't want to we don't want to admit that they're sick, Like what Jay said earlier, we have to respect them as a human being,
Hmm.
but we also have to say that, they really do need the help and that this is more of a mental disorder than it is of a spiritual problem. Now, I'm not saying that spiritual problem is like, out of the window or anything like that. I believe in spiritual problem, okay? We grew up believing in spiritual problem and praying over them and like, having demons and all that, but we have to draw the fine line of saying that this is a mental disorder that they need help. They need to seek professional help with.
Hmm.
And in some extreme cases, with the disorder that people have, with like depression, with schizophrenia, hearing their thoughts and everything, it makes them go through the extreme of like committing the ultimate sin, which is suicide. And so this next question goes into order of asking, do you think God is willing to forgive that person for what they did for committing suicide because of their mental disorder?
Well, I just like to start off by saying, like, I think personally we can't speak for God on what He will or won't do. But like, I think we're always hopeful, though. We're always hopeful that He does forgive people for things, you know, for like committing the ultimate sin like that. like it's hard. Like when you feel depressed and you're at the lowest point, and you're very vulnerable. And I think those are the moments where like the spiritual warfare happens, where like the devil may come and say things to you that could be your negative thoughts that that causes you to want to harm yourself. And those are very dangerous points. But I think when it comes down to you just really have to pray for them and hope that God does forgive them and He does still shed light on them. 'Cause I still believe, and I believe that He still loves them, like with whatever sin they have caused. Like speaking from my cousin's point of view, like when he committed suicide, like I believe and hope that God still forgave him, shed light on him. But personally, I don't think we can speak for God if He was willing.
Yeah, kind of the same like what Jay had mentioned too, but just kind of coming from what I believe. Um, I still believe God is a forgiving God, and He, you know, probably saw and see, everything. He knows everything, and so, I, especially with like the ultimate sin and whatnot, I still believe He's a forgiving God. So,
Same. I agree with Jay and Christy. We can't. I feel like I don't have much to say about that because we can't speak on behalf of God. Um, but I just, yeah, like Christy brought up a good point. It's he knows, what's to come, and he knows everyone's thoughts. He knows what's going on, and so I think I can't say anything about that. Yeah.
So if we answer based off of what we were taught growing up about how if you commit suicide you go to sin you go to
Mm-hmm.
hell, then the answer to Adam's question according to what we've been taught is no, they still go to hell, but and that's for God to decide. That's just based
Mm-hmm.
off of what we're taught.
Sure.
Because it's kind of just like, even if I didn't have a mental disorder, but I grew up without parents and no one to guide me, and I was a bad person, and in the end, I couldn't deal with all my actions and I killed myself. That doesn't excuse um, the act of committing suicide, and my life before that doesn't excuse the fact that I committed suicide. So, in this sense, and I'm not saying I agree or disagree. I'm just trying to, I don't know, I guess play the devil's advocate or just, see it from different
yeah,
sides. So, in that sense, if someone with a mental disorder commits suicide, um, also, like everyone said, that's not for me to decide. But if from what we're taught, the mental disorder doesn't excuse the fact that you committed suicide at the end of the day. You know what I mean? There's
Mm-hmm.
plenty of things that you could have done before you committed suicide. Like you could have sought help. You could have, done things to um try to, I guess, help yourself and the situation around you. And I'm not saying that, these people haven't, or they tried, and in the end, at the end of the day, um they just gave in or whatever. Like if we're talking about like the pastors that committed suicide, um they have he like one of the pastors from SoCal, he created a foundation for depression and helping people with that, but at the end of the day he still committed suicide. So in those circumstances, like, I do believe that sometimes, you just give in to things. And I think I see it sort of similar to like, I always bring up Alcohol Anonymous and stuff, but I see it like with people who struggle with like drugs and alcohol. Like it's on your mind 24/7, and you have to literally fight to keep it off your mind. And you have to keep busy, and at the end of the day, when you're alone at night and you're going to bed, what's the number one thing that's on your mind? The thing that's always been on your mind. You know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
it just because I've seeked help for like the beginning part of my day and I feel better, it doesn't mean when I'm alone at night I don't feel the things that I feel and that I've always been fighting. So I mean, yeah, it's not my place. But if you're asking for an answer, then from what I have learned, I will just say that no, um, it's not excusable just because you have a mental disorder. Man, this is, I don't want to be the villain here, you know, but I'm just
No,
saying based
no, you're good.
Yeah.
You're right.
based
Yeah,
off of what I've learned. And
yeah.
this goes along with like how we talked about gays and homosexuality. Like, no, it's not okay. You know,
Hmm.
and no matter how many people I have in my life that, you know, live that lifestyle, like this is just from what I've learned growing up and what I believe. And it's not even like, oh, it's what I've learned, so, you know, that's just what it is. Like it's what I believe too, you know. So yeah, I don't as much as I can feel for you, I will try to help you, but at the end of the day, my feelings would be like you know, it would, I think I would be more hurt because I know deep down inside that despite your issues and the problems and how long you've sought help, like you did the final act, you know, and it's no longer in my hands, it's in God's hands, and we can say that God forgave him because God understands his situation or her situation and everything. But I can't help what I believe, you know. I mean, I don't know all the right answers, I don't know how to rebuttal when people argue against me, but that's just what I believe.
Yeah.
Okay, if y'all want to kick me out now, go ahead. Adam, your turn.
No, I actually really agree with you with that, Nancy. You know, with this, God is a very just and loving God, no matter what, you know. And like you said, with mental disorder, we go through seeking help and what you brought up earlier about going to the hospital through the physical side. So with this, we look at three parts into this, which is the mental, the physical, and the spiritual part. And I think when it comes to this decision making, it comes down to the spiritual warfare, and we need to understand this part too, that like the mental disorder becomes a spiritual warfare, and it could change like that in a blink of an eye, and we have to look out for that. And you know, like you said, we don't speak for God. We don't know what he will think of this, but just because they have a disorder does not give them the excuse to commit the sin.
Hmm.
And so I believe that God is always going to be a loving God, no matter what. But to forgive them, that's that's something that we have to ask him once we meet him one day. And yeah, you know, one of my friends actually asked me this because her sister committed suicide, and I didn't know how to answer this or how to even like go about to comprehend this. And yeah, we talk about mental disorder, and having the different types of disorder can cause about how we think, how we feel, you know, what we do. Sometimes we may not understand how we feel. Sometimes we may go through a lot, you know, sometimes we may not go through anything at all. And we call those the dry season. How do you help someone to cope or process their emotions, their feelings? Because, like I said in the beginning, mental disorder is not just about the mental part, it's about how we feel too, it's about the emotional part.
I think for someone to heal or to be able to like be at peace is, I think the first process is always acceptance. Like you just kind of have to accept like what's going on, how you're feeling. Like I think people always have issues of like they're not happy, like they're sad, so they're not okay with it. But I think like the process of healing, you have to understand like it's okay to be sad, it's okay to be not happy. You know, like these are all process. So it's just a process. Like it's fine to be sad. It's fine to be not happy, but it's not okay to be stuck in that point for a long time. Like you have to just let it sink in, go through this phase, cry it out, do what you need to do, and then let it go and move on from it. But I think that's the hard part for people is once they just fallen so low, like it's hard for them to get back up. Um, my best advice is just, you have to just take a moment to yourself, really appreciate the things you have, like cherish the small victories you have. Like every day if you wake up, you have another chance to live your life, like cherish those moments. You wake up and you still have food on the table, you still have a house, like, these are small things you could cherish, but I know like it's cliche to say because we all like ignore these like daily small things. But when you're at like a lowest point, just cherish the small victories you can have, even as from just making your bed to be able to cook breakfast. These are all little things that you can do to just give you some kind of motivation, because if you can't accept things that have happened and you always want to change things, it's just not possible. It's not possible until you fully accepted that, you've lost, and how do you learn from that loss? And that's when you can fully grow to be happy. Yeah.
Cool. All right. So, um, I think when helping someone cope or process, um, I think definitely bring up like the positive, what do you call it? Like, okay, so like, there's the positives and the negatives. So like the negatives would be more like, when people turn to drugs or alcohol to cope with their feelings and emotions, right? And we know like drugs and alcohol can really trigger, some parts of our brain and whatnot. A lot of the time it's a negative outcome to that. But what I mean by positive is, turn to people you trust. Maybe some people are not really good with expressing themselves by talking to others. Maybe find, I don't know, things to do, like people like singing. They express themselves that way, and that's a or like do art. People express themselves that way through, sorry, that way by that way too. I'm like stuttering. Um, like definitely just, um, I mean, like us being in the church, um, leading youths also, just be there for them, give them, like, show them that empathy and compassion. And I think when we're talking to people, ask open-ended questions instead of just, like the yes and no questions. If you really want people to talk to you, ask those open-ended questions. Maybe people are talkers, and that's how they will, cope and process their feelings. I'm all over the place, but I think focusing more on like the positives rather than the negatives will really help.
Sure. Yeah.
I like that. I think for me, definitely just try to be an encouragement to them or like encourage them. Like what Christy said, be positive. You don't have to go around being negative, and you never know what your negativity and how, like, you never know what it can do to other people. And I'm not saying that you can't express your feelings at all or like hide your emotions, but like if you know someone who is having those problems, like try to be positive around them. Um Try to encourage them. Just be there for them, and I think just if anything at all, let them know that you are there for them, and let them know that they can always come to you. Um, but yeah, I think it's just I like how Christy said, ask open-ended questions, like encourage them to talk about themselves and their feelings, and just be the positive light for them.
Mm. I think when my first answer would be, well, I don't know if I have any second or third answers, but I think the first thing I would say is, I like when Justin was talking about acceptance. I think the first thought that came to mind was, when someone, like for example, when someone has cancer, um, the best thing they can do is accept their condition and do whatever the heck they have to do to help themselves. Go through treatment and you fight for your life. So when people have mental disorders, it's like I said, it's the same thing, but it's a condition of the mind, you know. So the first thing, like Justin was saying, I think it's just acceptance, accepting that you need your medications, you need those treatments to help you fight for your life. You need um to accept that people want to be there for you and to help you. Just the same as if you had cancer and people want to be there and help you as well. And I'm not saying they're equivalent, but it's just an example of, you know, any condition that you need help. And like everyone else was saying, you know, um, when you're sick and something's wrong, what do you need to do? Seek positive reinforcements, you know. Um, and like all the examples Christy gave, just surrounding yourself with positive things and trying to stay away from negative things. And if I don't know if you guys know, but a lot of people with mental disorders turn to drugs and alcohol because it helps them numb their mind and numb their condition, and it keeps them kind of just, you know, like not focused on their conditions. But at the same time, those drugs and alcohol, they actually um, it's like a synergistic effect, like it synergizes and it amplifies your mental disorders. So they think it numbs and it kind of like depresses like all the mental issues, but in actuality it actually amplifies it, and that's what makes it worse. And that's like, it goes along with what Christy was saying, like to keep them away from negative things, because what they don't know hurts them. You know, like um yeah, most of the time when people come into mental hospitals, they come in because one, they've stopped their drugs, and their mental disorders. It's kind of like a rebound effect. Like the drugs helped you, and once you stop, it doubles, and that's why, you know, you find them in the streets trying to kill themselves because they stopped their drugs. Or two, they've taken like alcohol and drugs and it's amplified it, so that's also another reason why they come in. So yeah, I think helping people cope is just to accept their condition, accept the help, and accept that they have to do what they need to do in order to fight it, accept the people that want to be there for us, as the bystanders, to just be there with them through the process, be there with them
Yeah.
as if, you know, you're there with your friends during cancer, you know. Talk to them about their feelings, talk to them about how they're feel about their day, or, you know, just the whole process. Ask them how they're feeling about everything, you know. And sometimes just being there and being silent is enough, you know. um I don't think any of us have the right answers, and even those who have family members who have always had a mental disorder where, you know, they're used to it, I don't even think they have the right answers. You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
I think the best we can do is know that at the end of the day, we really did try to be different, be a change for them, you know, um, and accept what is and accept what you can't do to help. Because we're not trained in these areas. We don't know the right answers. We don't know what the right things to say. The best thing we can do is just hopefully react the way we would want people to react towards us if we were in those shoes.
Yeah, most definitely. Just showing that, you know, we care and make an effort. I think that's all you can really do.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, one of the most important thing is to show compassion. And what
Mhm.
is compassion? Compassion means to suffer with, you know,
Mhm.
just being there, a shoulder for them to cry on, you know, just an ear to listen, you know, just someone, or just a mouth to give them word of encouragement. It's really important, and it goes a long way for them to understand that they are not alone, for them to process their feelings and emotions, and that they are not alone in this, and they have someone there, you know, for a hand to hold them through this is very important. And I wanted to bring this up. You know, this is our ending verse. I wanted to end on a Bible verse with this, and that is Philippians chapter 2, verse 1 through 4. And it says, therefore, if there is any consolation in Christ, if any comfort of love, if any fellowship of the Spirit, if any affection and mercy, fulfill my joy by being like minded, having the same love, being in one accord, of one mind. Let nothing be done through selfish ambition or conceit, but in lowliness of mind, let each esteem others better than himself. Let each of you look out not only for his own interests, but also the interests of others. For us to understand this verse, we really understand other people and really be open minded to what they have, and to really be open minded with the mental disorder that they have, whatever that they're going through, whether it's depression or bipolar, schizophrenia, PTSD, etc. Anything that's all about that. It's very important for us to understand that disorder. And so, yeah, that is my TCNY podcast. Thank you for tuning in, and join us next time for our next As We Break the Bread.